Hey everyone, my name's Ovaldo, or Ovi. This is my wife Margaret. This is our daughter Annabella. We are missionaries being sent by Contact Canada to Germany to serve at Neues Leben. We decided to share our testimonies on video today so that you guys could get to know us a little bit better and see how God has used our past to shape who we are today. Margaret's going to share her testimony first, and then I'm going to share in the next video. Thanks for watching.
I think I can put my childhood into basically two time frames. For the first one being up into the age of 10, and the second one when my dad was a more permanent part of our life. I love my mom very much, and she did so much to protect and give us a good childhood. And so I struggled a little bit on how much I should share of my testimony from my childhood, but I feel like in order to truly share my testimony and how God has used my past to make me who I am today, I need to share some, and to show part of my spiritual journey and committing my life to Christ. So I decided on a few things to share. My mom grew up and lived a good amount of time on a Hutterite colony in southern Manitoba. A few years after she left the colony, my sister was born, and shortly after, I was born. We moved around lots when I was younger, living in many different towns and cities. That was because of my biological father. We were moving because he was either on the run from the police or because he was caught by the police and in jail. While he was in jail, my mom herself would pick us up and run. She would run to get away from him, to try and hide and protect us. I have small memories during this time of living in women's shelters in Brandon. My biological father made a lot of mistakes and a lot of bad choices, and we were very afraid of him. But he would find us, and the cycle would start all over again. But eventually my mom did get away from him, and she moved us to Souris. One thing about me is that I'm very stubborn. It took me years to believe that I really was stubborn, but I was just too stubborn to see my own stubbornness. But I can look back at my life and see, yeah, I guess I really am a stubborn person. And because of this, it was very hard to convince me to do something that I did not want to do, which I think helped me in my high school days. But at this time in my childhood, it really made a difference. We were on our way to our court-ordered supervised visits. These visits would either take place in a jail or at a designated building. We had pulled up to the building, but I absolutely refused to get out of the car. There was no way they were making me go in for this visit with this man that was supposed to be my father. But in no way was he a father to me. He was a man that I was very afraid of, and for years I had seen what he was capable of doing. I had had enough, and at the age of 9, the court sided with me, and me along with my sister no longer had to go on these visits. Unfortunately, just because the court says you no longer have to have visits or a full restraining order is placed, doesn't mean he'd be out of our lives for good. During this time in my childhood, I know my mom took us to church regularly, but I don't remember it at all. I don't recall anything about learning about Christianity, about God. I don't remember anything. Maybe I didn't want to. I really don't know. Now entering the second half of my childhood, I'm around 10 years old. It was at this time that my mom married the only man I would consider to be my only dad. He showed us that not all men are bad, and he gave us a life that we had not yet known. He gave us stability, a sense of security, and protection, and although we biologically weren't his children, he loved and cared for us as if we were. I remember him buying me my first ever brand new bike when we lived in Souris, and it was the most amazing and special thing to me, because this man who would love me so much to spend so much money on me, when countless times my mom had to go back to the pawn shop to find my favorite little purple bike because my biological father would sell it for more money for alcohol. My new father was someone I grew close to very quickly, and most importantly, he showed us what having a true relationship with Jesus Christ was. I was no longer afraid of anything, and not too long after they were married, we moved up to Flin Flon, and I quickly had many friends. We were going to church, and I loved it. Life was good. Then one day, years after moving to Flin Flon, my life was turned upside down. I was home for lunch, and the phone rang, and of course I answered it. Instantly, my heart sank. He found us. The person calling as my biological father. I don't remember everything that was said, but I do know that after this phone call, I developed a fear of talking on the phone or really answering a phone if it had a blocked ID. And to this day, I won't answer a phone unless I am absolutely sure I know who is calling. What I heard him say will stay with me forever. Although it is no longer something I dwell on or think about often, but it was something that really impacted me when I was a child. In short, some of his words were, "I'm going to kill you." I truly believed it. He was not a good man. The police did pick him up and arrest him at a bus depot. Whether he was coming or not, I really don't know. But suddenly my life was all shaken up. I was afraid of everything, especially the bus depot we lived down the street from. I knew he was caught and that he couldn't actually come, but I was still scared and I was angry. I was angry particularly at God. How could he do this? We finally had a normal life. How could the God that says he loves me so much let something like this happen? This was something I sort of went through on my own, because I like to keep everything in and I don't really talk about things. So during this time I withdrew and I only went to church because I had to. I pushed away from everything, including God. But it was during my high school that I grew closer to God and started to understand what it meant to know him as a personal savior. And that although bad stuff had happened in my life and that life was always changing, God wasn't. He still loved me, and even though I was so angry with him, he would always love me. I'm not going to lie though, high school wasn't always easy. I didn't have a lot of close friends, and as the years went on, my list of close friends grew smaller and smaller. Sure, I had school friends, but that's exactly what they were, just school friends. I was the only person my age at church. In fact, I didn't know anyone else my age who attended a church. There was not another kid, not a single Christian kid that I knew that was my age. In some ways, it was very lonely because I didn't have anyone to talk to lean on, or to really be encouraged with. But this is where my stubbornness really helped. While everyone else was going to the drinking parties, I in no way could be convinced to go, no matter how much they tried to convince me or how hard they pressured me. And I'm really thankful for God that he was by my side, giving me strength to go through this and say no over and over. But slowly my friends and I grew distant because partying was the cool thing to do. And although they could count on me to get them home safely, if they needed it, I wouldn't drink or go to any of the parties. Then, near the end of high school, I spent my summers at Simon House Bible Camp, an amazing camp serving the North, reaching out to so many kids where camp is their only exposure to Jesus. It was during my final summer there that I got an overwhelming desire to follow God with my whole heart. And that fall, I was baptized out in the lake. I felt on top of the world, like nothing could get me down, because if my God is for me, then who can be against me? After dedicating my life to him, God changed my heart. When I was 19 years old, Ovi and I married. Ovi is going to talk more about how we met and our marriage, so I'm not going to talk much about it now. In August, we'll have been married for 8 years, and I'm so incredibly thankful that God has brought him up to Flin Flon and into my life. Together, we have the most amazing 2-year-old daughter, and man, do I love her so much. I can reflect on the past years of our marriage and see how God has always been at work in our lives and teaching me. There are 2 specific times in our early marriage that really stick out to me. We lived in Winnipeg in a small 1-bedroom apartment. For the first probably 4 years, we rarely lived alone. We have always had a very open home, and if someone didn't have a place to go, we welcome them into ours to help them get back on their feet. Helping out that person, or in some cases a mother and child, has always been far more important than the amount of space or comfort that we had, even if it meant sometimes giving up our only bedroom. It was during this time that we found out about an old coworker of Ovi's that he lost his job and all of his possessions and was living on the streets in BC. And now that we became aware of his need, we couldn't simply ignore it. So we got him to Winnipeg to stay with us. To make a long story much shorter, we completely trusted him and wanted to help him. Several months later, he came home from a doctor's appointment and said that he had cancer. We went all in to help him, doing anything we could, and took him to all of his appointments that he needed to go to. But then suddenly things weren't quite adding up. If I really sit and think back, I can see that it wasn't quite so sudden. But for me at the time, it was very sudden, because God made me a new person, and I had complete trust in that person. I will first have complete trust in someone until they show me that I may need to be a bit more careful, but then I will just give it to God, and once again I will have complete trust in that person. So in this situation, what wasn't adding up was large amounts of money was missing. Checks were gone, credit cards gone. I remember finding out while Obi was at work and calling him in tears. I didn't feel anger, but I was hurt. And then we found out that he didn't actually have cancer. How can someone lie about such a significant illness? I will never know. But at this point, I was fairly upset. Obi came right away, and I started getting more upset and just feeling betrayed. Right away, Obi stopped me and said that we needed to pray. And God is so amazing. Like always, He really came through for us, and we instantly felt calm and peace about the whole situation. We knew, and the other person knew, that he couldn't continue staying with us. But we also knew he had nowhere to go and no money, so we made sure that he had something to help him get by and find another safe place to go. Because above all else, he was still a person that God still loved. In the days and weeks after this, Obi would come home and say how important it was that we don't let what happened affect our generosity, and that we can't let it stop us from listening to God and what He places on our hearts. God has always been faithful to us, and so we needed to remain faithful to Him. Another big turning point in my faith walk was when God showed me about true forgiveness and what it really means to truly forgive. After all, I was often told in Sunday school and at church in childhood that I needed to forgive others and then God would forgive me. I thought, all right, I think I'm pretty good at this one, and I never really put tons of thought into it. Then one Sunday, Pastor Terry was speaking on the topic, and it awoke something in me. I don't remember exactly what Terry said, but I went home really looking at my life and if I was truly the forgiving person that I thought I was. Over the next few weeks, I prayed and dug deeper into what true forgiveness meant. And that's when I had a big aha moment. There was one area or person in my life I had never truly forgiven, and that was my biological father. He did a lot of pain and damage in my life, and I was still holding on to the pieces of that. With God by my side, I truly and fully forgave him for the things he had done. Instantly, this weight was lifted off. God wanted to lift that weight off this whole time, but I wouldn't let him. I had still been holding on to the pieces. And now, nearly 8 years of marriage later, we are following God where He is calling, and He is calling us to serve with Noise Laban. I have always considered myself a very plain and ordinary person, nothing really different about me. I have always been the more quiet type, more in the background. So, when God called us to serve Him in Germany, I was doubting myself and if I could really do this. But God has been there the whole time, at every curve in the road, and gently pushing and reminding me that He has all the details planned out and to just trust and follow where He leads. Ovi is going to talk more about this, and so I'm going to leave it here. But I really love to serve and help others, and so I'm super excited to be obedient to God and serve Him in Germany. Thanks for watching, and please keep an eye out for Ovi's next video.